Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about our world in data, and we have two of the most knowledgeable people in the industry here with us today. We have Jager McConnell, furthest away from me, who's the CEO of Crunchbase and was a huge part of the story, the ongoing story that is Salesforce.com. And we've Brittany Kaiser here close to me, who is the chair of the board of directors of Griffon Digital, a blockchain mining play, and she's the co-founder of Own Your Data, of the Own Your Data Foundation. So welcome, Jager, and welcome, Brittany.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here with you guys today.
Cool, cool. Okay, I'm going to start. We've got the business and the personal side for this. I'm going to start with Jager with the business side. You previously mentioned that you wanted Crunchbase to be like the LinkedIn of company data, the way LinkedIn built all that data up and then was able to find great solutions in the recruitment space, especially, also a little bit in the sales and prospecting space. Where are you on that? You know, with all that data you've got there in Crunchbase, how is that going in terms of building solutions?
Yeah, we think about Crunchbase as next-gen enterprise software. So I'm Salesforce background. That was sort of like first-gen cloud software, and that was just getting all the functionality into the cloud. Then there's like this insights stage, which is kind of what we're in now. That's current gen, where you take all the data that's within the CRM or within the enterprise software and do insights on it. We think next gen is now taking the company data, taking the usage data, then applying it also to topical data, so everything that's happening in the world, and sort of figuring out how all those things come together. So that, we believe, was going to help Crunchbase become the best prospecting software in the world, using our 80 million users that use our platform, using what we know about companies and all the activity and buy signals that's happening with companies to make an incredible experience for anyone who's looking for opportunities with companies or to connect to companies.
So very much on there's a lot of use cases, of course, but very much on the biz dev and you know, B2B sales side of
it's sales. Again, we have 80 million people using us. A lot of people think of us as like an investor tool.
Yeah.
But the reality is,
I used to as well.
There's only like 50,000 investors, so like it's an important part of our story. But from where we make money, it's actually more on the sort of sales, sort of prospecting side.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
Brittany. Now, you've co-founded this amazing foundation, Own Your Own Data, and we'll get to how you got there, because you got there in a very interesting way. But tell us a little bit about the mission of Own Your Data.
The Own Your Data Foundation was founded specifically so that we could give democratic access to digital literacy. I think most of the world is not as digitally literate as we could be, and that's everything from understanding what your data rights are, how to use data, basic cybersecurity protocols, basically how to protect yourself, but also lead a successful digital life. You might think of screen time management and protecting your mental and physical health while being forced to use technology 24/7 over the past year and a half. Actually really understanding how to engage in that way, especially for families with young children that have been learning online at home. These types of programs are what we're here to provide and make sure that even cutting-edge applications like advanced predictive analytics and blockchain are more understandable for younger people that are getting into tech for the first time.
That's a brilliant mission, and as a father of two small kids, and I'm sure a lot of people in the audience would welcome that. It's something we need in the world. It's something a lot of us worry about all the time. Jager, so Brittany's bringing a lot of good into the world. Apart from empowering organizations to sell better and prospect better, what's Crunchbase doing? How's Crunchbase bringing some good stuff into the world?
That's a good question. So we think of it in two different ways. One is we're democratizing access to opportunities. Yeah. So you know, a lot of people don't have networks of VCs. A lot of people don't know how to get their company discovered. That's why entrepreneurs put themselves into Crunchbase, is to become discovered. So if you are a woman in Indonesia who started a company that's incredible, how do you get discovered by the VCs with the money who can actually go and fund your company? Yeah. Crunchbase is a way to do that. We also go and try to shine a spotlight on some of the issues that are in our industry. So we do analysis, for instance, 1.2% of funding went to black people in America in the last, or so far this year, compared to 13% of the population. So there's this huge issues. Women only got 2.2%, or 50% of the population. There's only 86% of Latina or Latino partners in VC firms making decisions. So we do that sort of analysis to help say, like, something wrong here. Let's go make a difference with the data that we have. So we do a lot of that work.
And it only really sinks in when you hit me with the data, 7 or 8% of what it should be for black people, and what was that, 5% of what it should be for women. It's just in pure insanity, those numbers. Absolutely. And I've always felt startups are missing a trick with that, because it means there's huge underserved talent out there. Brittany, let's take a look at the dark side of data for a second, because you've been there. You were a part of Cambridge Analytica, which kind of infamously used a combination of an app and data brokers and Facebook to do behavioral targeting and to sway the decision-making of individuals. Allegedly, it helped Brexit and it helped Trump. I almost hope it did, because it's a bad sign if something didn't happen to move the meter a little bit in that direction. How much did that experience? I know you also were kind of a whistleblower. That you talked about how you talked publicly about the whole thing and testified. How much did that experience help you with your new obsession to empower us to be better and safer and just all around happier digital natives or digital citizens? How much did that help?
Of course. Well, when I started in technology, I really saw technology as a force for good, especially data. I was on the 2007-2008 Obama campaign team that invented social media strategy. We were the first group of people to actually use data from Facebook in order to, target people politically, but get more people than ever before to sign up to vote for the first time, to actually care about politics, to be able to engage with issues that were important to themselves and their families. And after that, I was studying as a human rights lawyer and helped a lot of human rights organizations and United Nations departments learn how to use these exact same tools in order to achieve their campaigning goals. So I really walked into a company like Cambridge Analytica thinking, great, I'm going to learn how to use the most advanced tools in the industry to do some incredible things, to do impact work. And unfortunately, I learned a lot more about data there than I bargained for, but mostly about the massive problems within the data industry, and that there were so many human rights violations, not just human rights to privacy, but human rights violations across the board that were caused by an unregulated data industry. So what I really saw was, if all of our data is vastly available to everyone on the planet, with most countries at the time when I became a whistleblower in 2018 not even having data protection or privacy laws, what could we do to improve the industry so that entrepreneurs and technologists could use technology for good things, but we could also protect people against bad actors? And I really think that that's been a balance for me over the past 3.5 years of how do you work on education and awareness to make sure people are empowered to make more educated decisions about how they choose to use technology. How do we work with regulators and legislators to make sure that the laws are actually implementable? I spend a lot of time bringing technologists to Congress to make sure that laws actually work alongside the technologies, especially emerging technologies that move so quickly. And then make sure that technologies are scalable, that are privacy by design, encryption technologies, everything from digital identity and blockchain technologies, to make sure that those are accessible and that entire governments or multinational corporations can start to give that transparency and consent and power back to the individual.
Very good. Jager, data sharing and collaboration between companies seems to be growing. And there seems to be more plays in that area, like Crossbeam and their kind of partner ecosystem is a good example, but there's a lot of them. Do you see that growing, and does Crunchbase have any play in that direction?
Yeah, I mean, so we're more company focused. So we certainly go and power most of the company data you see on the internet. We're powering, Yahoo Finance or LinkedIn, what have you.
Yeah.
On the contact data side, that's where I think the privacy data really comes into play. And with more and more of these GDPR, the California Protection Act, there's a lot of things that are starting to put at least regulation around it. So it's not just a free-for-all Wild Wild West. I think there's a lot more that can be done here. I think there's a lot of room for innovation here, or how do I as an individual get to capitalize on people capitalizing on me? I think there's a lot of good opportunities there so that people can take back control of their own personal side. But I do think that business is going to keep growing. And the problem, of course, is that it's very hard to institute global regulation. So if there will always be bad actors, there's always going to be the website that's in some place that is unregulated, where the people who want to take advantage of that data can go and buy it sort of on the black market, if you will, or in the unregulated market, maybe more appropriately. So that's unfortunately sort of a reality that we're going to be in. And again, maybe there's innovation out there that I can't think of that's going to go and prevent that from happening. Maybe there's an NFT play here where like I own my own my own identity and decide how I can rent it out to people. But unfortunately, it's not going to go away. So it's how do we work with it? How do we let people easily be good actors in this story, and give people the power back to them?
Absolutely. I think things like Secret Network and these incredibly clever blockchain plays, I think they will be part of the solution in the future. We probably not enough time to cover all of that, but absolutely. Brittany, Jager mentioned GDPR, and of course the EU has kind of data privacy enshrined in law, and is basically considered a human right in that entity. The right to forget and all of that. The US and the EU have kind of gone different roads there. Do you think they can find a way back closer together, or do you think the EU is going to come in and regulate harder, or do you think it's the US dragging its heels? What's your opinion on all of that?
Well, I do think GDPR was a good first step, but obviously it's been incredibly hard to implement. Most information commissioners' offices across Europe are absolutely snowed under with subject access requests, with people requesting their data, requesting for their data to be deleted or to revoke access for marketing purposes. And the full-scale technology implementation of that is actually kind of difficult. So if companies don't have that internal capacity, if they don't have very strong back-end databases and data scientists that are working on this, then that might not be really easy to respond to one of those requests. So I think one of the biggest issues we need to look at is not just what the legislation says, but what technologies are we using that will make compliance more I suppose, achievable for companies and easier for individuals. And so I wanted to actually pay homage to what you just said, which is our data is out there, it's everywhere. Like, what are we actually talking about when we think about privacy? It really is thinking about all the data that we produce from now into the future. All the data that's already out there about us is going to be very difficult to revoke or delete. I wouldn't spend as much time on that. I would say, everything that we produce about ourselves from here into the future, how do we protect that? How do we make sure that we're implementing large-scale encryption solutions, privacy by design technologies, blockchain technologies especially, that allow us to protect personally identifiable information, our digital IDs. That's really where I am spending a lot of my time these days, to make sure that everything that we talk about conceptually, legally, regulatorily is implementable.
Okay.
And if I could just maybe add one more thing, there's also kind of a dark side of GDPR, which may be like a controversial topic.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you how much funding has gone to black entrepreneurs in Europe because GDPR prevents me from talking about it. I can't track it, and that's like turning off the spotlight on issues and bias, and that concerns me. So like we're trying to figure out how to work around it, and it's not pretty. And so I've actually had people tell me there's no bias in Europe, there's no racism in Europe because there's no data that supports that. I'm like, of course there's no data because I'm prevented from actually collecting the data. It's this a double-edged sword sometimes.
So you can't highlight these things.
Yeah, how can you do good?
Absolutely.
Sometimes?
Yeah. So it's not as clear cut as some of us like to think of it. Absolutely. And Jager, there's an avalanche of data coming in. You probably have numbers on how fast it's accelerating, but it's something like 2.5 quintillion bytes a day. You're somebody who's an inventor. You registered, I think, 8 or 9 of your 25 patents made it in Salesforce, and you're a product guy. What do you think will be the next great leaps in the next 2 or 3 years in terms of how we gather data better and how we process it and make it more useful? Where do you think the big leaps are coming?
Yeah, it's a good question, and obviously, if I could answer this question, I might have a gigantic, like an even larger company in Crunchbase. But the reality is if this merging of my usage and how I'm going and getting insights from everything I'm doing, all the users are doing, and then what's happening in the world, that whole story, and it's happening in the consumer space, right? You've got that with Spotify and Netflix and Zillow and all these companies. Even Tesla, how do you drive cars? Yeah. The software is going to start doing the job for you more and more, right? And it does that by not just looking at one path, which is, I was talking about company data when I was going through my example, but it's actually going and merging additional now sets of topical data. And that becomes a harder and harder challenge as you try to figure out the buckets of people fit into in realms of all these different data sets. That is, to your point, all that compounding exponential data growth becomes a real software problem of how do you go and make it into something useful for a person to consume. And like the ideal world is, ideal for some people, I suppose, that the software just says, this is what you want today, right? And that's what Google tries to do when you go to their page, like, here's what you're probably going to search for based on everything we know about what's happening on the internet. There may be even some next level stuff there when you start merging even more real world and virtual world data together. Fascinating.
Brittany, possibly the final question. I see the clock winding down. You said that it's not only important that individuals, are digitally are educated and understand how to deconstruct messaging and all of that, but that they should actually get a piece of that multi-trillion-dollar industry. When do you think that's going to happen in the next 5 years? How soon do you think it's going to happen?
It's actually already happening on multiple different levels. So one of the most important things that is going on in new regulation on data protection and privacy is that we as individuals would own our data as intangible personal property, the way we own our house, the way we own our car. So if you think about the Airbnb model, if someone wants to use your data like they would use your house, they tell you who they are, how long they want to use it for, what they intend to use it for, and you agree on a price before you hand away the keys. So a lot of large-scale implementation of blockchain technologies allow you to do that. You can log in, you have your digital wallet, and your personal identifiable information, PII, is never shared. Your name, your address, your location, all of that is kept safe. But all of the anonymized data set about your favorite color and what you like to read about and where you go, that can be shared and monetized, and you can automatically be rewarded for that. We actually have the ability to take care of our most basic human rights, access to food and clean water every single day by that amount of money that we're earning from our data, and that's really the goal in the end.
Fantastic. Last question for both of you. Jager, what is your vision for Crunchbase over the next 5 years? Where do you want to see it go? And how do you want it to impact the world?
Yeah, again, can we be linked to different companies? Can it be just a household name? I want company information. I want to connect to companies. You go to Crunchbase. We want to make that 80 million users and 800 million users. I think there's a big opportunity for us.
Fantastic. Same question to you, Brittany. Next 5 years, own your data. What would be the best end goal in 5 years' time?
I want to see data ownership be easy to access for anyone around the world, even on the most basic of technology, which is why at Griffin Digital Mining, we've been building large-scale sustainable blockchain infrastructure. And I really believe that over the next 3 to 5 years, we will see every single person be able to earn a passive earned income just by deciding to share your data safely and anonymously.
Awesome. Fascinating. And maybe the answers to a lot of these questions lie in the blockchain. We'll see. Jager McConnell and Brittany Kaiser, thank you so much for a fascinating conversation.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.